Welcome, dear listeners. I'm Jonathan Carlin.
And I'm Benjamin Carlin.
And we invite you to join us through the Griffin door, your one-way ticket to the enchanting world of Harry Potter. So grab your wands and dust off your broomsticks and join us as we unlock the mysteries behind Prisoner of Azkaban, Chapter 18, Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs.
Oh, we're in it.
We are in it. We are in the Shrieking. I love this three-chapter section of Prisoner where we're just in the Shrieking Shack learning all of the history of the Marauders and like uncovering the truth about Pettigrew, and like it's just so good.
Yes. I mean, there's just so much. There's so much like meat of the story that's finally happening. Like this is kind of like it's so nice too, because after like a lengthy, read through the story, it's not like you've got like one chapter of like climax or something. It's sort of like this book is just at 100 miles an hour for three big chapters in a row.
Yes.
And then you've got like, Dementor's kiss Patronus type action going on. Then you've got Time Turner action going on, and then you still get to wrap up with like a conversation between Harry and Dumbledore at the end. So it's like the like when you're reading through, I feel like I've been saying it so much throughout this book, but like I can't help but really begin to realize just how great like the last hour and a half of reading this book is for the user.
Yes, it is really good. And so we're gonna dive in today. I will say before we begin that as we are recording this, we have just returned back from through the Griffin tour west.
Yes, which was an incredible experience. I mean, there is nothing. I know we said the same thing when we came home from the East Coast. Like there was nothing more fun than getting to meet all the Griffin dorks out there.
Yes.
Really just absolutely incredible to get to spend all the time with all those people. So if you came out to any of the shows, we super appreciate it. And if you're still waiting for us to come to your hometown, not to worry, we've got more on the horizon.
Yes, we do. So keep your ears open. We are not done touring yet. If you want to see a chapter live, we'll have some announcements for you in the near future. And if you're wondering, we did record each of the shows as we went in each city. For each show, we did the next chapter in the book. So that will be true for the next 6 chapters of the book.
Yes.
So if you want to, and we did record them. So if you want to see what the live show was like, we will be uploading those videos to the Through the Griffin Door YouTube channel each week.
And everywhere available, we did also incorporate a crowd mic this go round, because we know one of the big complaints about the East Coast tour was that you oftentimes couldn't hear people in the audience. So hopefully this go round, you will be able to hear any of those comments when they may have come from the people there in person. So we tried to hear you guys as much as humanly possible about how those last ones went, but we will have recordings of all of the chapters like standard here from our set, as well as all of those live performances over on the YouTube channel if you want to check those out there as well.
Yes, and while you're there, just go ahead and subscribe.
May as well.
May as well, because we're gonna get to that silver button, Ben.
One day, one
of these days.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna do that, and we if you guys want to do it, and I would recommend going and checking it out because it is super fun, and you can just sort of see what it looks like live instead.
Exactly.
If you want to.
Yep.
But anyway, let's jump into Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs here. We can start with talking about the chapter art, which is the subject of some debate.
It really is. So yeah, when you're looking at it here, we're getting like a depiction of a very large kind of like wolfish looking creature,
4-legged canine.
Yes, exactly. But it's not so decidedly like werewolf status. Like it doesn't look scary enough to me to be a werewolf.
Right.
So it's like it could be serious. However, it's not fully clear, like, especially because it seems like it's a heavy Lupin chapter.
Yeah, like it looks like it could be serious or Lupin. And like the thing, like Lupin will be doing most of the talking in this chapter and sort of telling the story, which makes me lean Lupin, but then like I feel like it, if you've seen the movies, the way they depict the werewolves in the movies is so different from how the werewolves are like described in the book.
Right.
You know, like the werewolf in the book sounds more like a wolf. That's just like extra dangerous.
Right.
Like whereas the werewolf in the movies looks sort of like half humanoid, half werewolf. And that's not what this image looks like. But of course this image would predate the movies, and Lupin's doing the talking, and Sirius won't be actually transformed in this chapter, but like also neither will Lupin. And Lupin will be doing the talking about them turning into animals. So I would love to know what you guys think. Is it Lupin or is it Sirius?
I know, yeah. And all I can say is that when we were live in Seattle for this episode, it seemed like it was just completely divided across the room.
Yeah, like it wasn't obvious what people thought. So
Yes. Maybe we'll throw a poll up over.
We should
on Patreon. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll just be available. So even if you're not a patron, you can still go and see it and participate if you'd like to. So
yes,
we'll go and check that out. But otherwise, basically what we're coming on the heels of is the grand reveal from chapter 17, which is Cat, Rat, and Dog, basically where Sirius finally is like, he's not a rat. He is a wizard, an animagus by the name of Peter Pettigrew. So that's what we're picking up with. And we'll basically dive in right where we left off, where it says, it took a few seconds for the absurdity of this statement to sink in. Then Ron voiced what Harry was thinking. You're both mental.
Yeah.
And then we get a line from Hermione who says, ridiculous. And I think it's such an amazing choice of word, especially from Hermione here, because there's a small part of me that wonders if this is almost like Hermione's, like the boggart lesson, sort of like living in the back of her mind, because where the incantation would be like ridiculous. So like I can't tell if like on some level Hermione is like, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. Like, ridiculous, like almost like make it go away, like,
right?
Like wake up from this dream. Mm-hmm. When will it be funny? Like, you know, what is going to happen here? Which of course maybe she's just saying ridiculous, which would be it's spelled differently.
Yeah, it's
spelled like the word.
I love it. It's interesting too because it says ridiculous exclamation point, but then said Hermione faintly, so it's sort of like just like a ridiculous.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Exactly. That was a great impersonation.
Thank you.
Of what Hermione most likely sounded like.
Yeah. But if you're Ron and like, you know, especially Ron, you must think this sounds mental, like, because this has been your pet. And they're basically saying that pet you've had has been a man the whole time. And you're like, nah, what?
No.
Like if you went home and someone was like, hey, your dog, that's a person. like, no, it's not. It's my dog.
No, I can't handle that. My brain will not handle that.
Yeah.
Speaking of brains not handling things, though, basically Harry counters and he's like, but Peter Pettigrew is dead. He killed him 12 years ago. And Sirius is sort of like, I meant to, but little Peter Pettigrew got the better of me. Not this time, though. And that's one of those moments where you're like Sirius is such a powerful wizard, and Peter is so always described as being this like teary, watery-eyed, like kind of squeaky. Like you're like, how did Peter get the better of Sirius? And like the only thing that goes through my head here is that in that situation, Sirius must have just been so distraught. I mean, which understandably so. I mean, you know, he cares about nothing more than his friends.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, he is existing in the wake of discovering that James and Lily are gone.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that is the only situation that enables Peter to get the best.
Oh yeah.
Of
and he's
Black.
like, and you know, he's blaming himself because he knows he's the one who suggested Peter be the secret keeper anyway.
Right.
But Sirius, as ever here, is not being helpful to his cause. He is saying, you know, I meant to kill him. You know, it's like, I'm not a murderer, but I sure tried to be.
Yes,
you know?
yes,
Like,
I did my best. I was foiled.
I know, like, dude, please just say what you mean. But no, let's see. So Sirius lunges. He's trying to kill Peter. But Lupin jumps in front of him and says, wait, you've got to understand. We've got to explain. And Black is just saying, you know, no, we can explain afterwards. Don't worry about it. But Lupin's going to reason with him here. And he says a couple of things. Like, first of all, I love that he says, you know, there are parts of it even I don't understand, which I think is a great line for Lupin because he has come to the Shrieking Shack basically with just the information that Peter is alive, but he doesn't even understand all of it yet, and yet he still has faith in Sirius, which I think is just a good look for Lupin. Yeah. I mean, and we're going to see this kind of continuously happen with Lupin as the rest of like the chapter and the next unfold a little bit, where it seems like you'll have these moments where basically like Lupin will get one very integral
very hard to assume piece of information that like reframes the entire situation, and it like sort of like clicks his comprehension about what happened that day, and it's like, oh, I see what happened here. But before we get there, he's still trying to restrain Sirius, and he's like, they've got a right to know everything. And then he gives two hilarious things in my particular opinion. He's like, you owe Harry the truth, Sirius, and also Ron's kept him as a pet.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, Lupin, one of those things is way, way, way more important, and it's the fact that Ron kept him as a pet.
Yeah, that's the one for sure.
One,
that's where I'm sure that's what stopped Sirius in his tracks. He's like, oh, he's been pretending to be a pet. You're right. Sorry,
You're right.
Ron.
And it's like, I understand. Pets are an important thing. No, it's of course Harry. And I think that when it comes to Sirius, this is sort of like going to be like the gateway that's just going to like it's the only key that I think can unlock, Sirius from his like rage and anger in this particular moment.
Yeah,
it's like,
it is what finally gets through to him, because he's just like, it says Black stopped struggling through his hollowed eyes, and they were still fixed on Scabbers, who was clamped tightly under Ron's bitten, scratched, and bleeding hands. And so it's important to remember, as all this is happening, is that Peter is basically biting and scratching Ron the entire time, and Ron has just got like the world's greatest death grip on him.
Yes, I mean it's almost amazing that like Ron is not the one who kills Scabbers in this particular scene, because it's like the amount of like tenacity that must be going into holding on to this writhing, rat. Like it can't possibly be easy. Like Ron's like a quiet MVP of the
situation.
Scene.
Yeah.
But then they get another line from Sirius that I think is just such classic Sirius. But he's like, "All right then, tell them whatever you like, but make it quick, Remus. I want to commit the murder I was in prison for." And it's like this is classic Sirius hot-headedness. It's like he wants the revenge on Peter more than he wants his own freedom. Like he is being so blinded by the rage, which I think like, when the like this ultimately comes off, Sirius like realizes like the benefits of not killing Peter, which is like, this will clear your name, which means you can go and live a life, which means you can go and live with Harry, and that will be good. But in this moment, it's like Sirius, you found him, man. Like you found Peter Pettigrew.
I know.
Like, that is your evidence that you didn't do it.
Exactly. He's like, I don't even care about going back to Azkaban. Like I'm probably going back no matter what, but at least I'll have done the crime this time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's that. But I also love how he says, do it quick, or what does he say? Yeah, make it quick, Remus, because Lupin is not going to make it quick.
There is nothing quick about anything that happens.
Nothing quick about this. It is the world's slowest storytelling ever. But he is going to continue to insist that Lupin speed up, and Lupin is going to continue not to, which I just think is really funny.
Yeah.
So like, I love how Ron, though, that his response to this is, "You're nutters, both of you. I had enough of this. I'm off." And like Ron is just like keeping it so cool here. He's like, "Yeah, you guys sound crazy. I'm just gonna peace out right now." And don't forget, Ron has a broken leg here.
Yes.
And he's holding Scabbers, and he's just like, he literally makes the move to stand up and try and leave, but cannot.
Yeah. I mean, the line, "I've had enough of this. I'm off," kind of reminds me of like the SpongeBob memes, where he's like, "Well, I'm a head out." Like, he's like, you're like standing up slowly. It's like, no, you're not, Ron.
Yeah,
you have such a broke leg.
Yep.
Let's see here. And then Lupin at this point in time is like, "You're going to hear me out, Ron. Just keep a tight hold on Peter while you listen."
I know. And Ron is insistent. He's not Peter, he's Scabbers. Which, like, at this point, I'm just like, dude, your attachment to the rat has gone way too far.
It is actually,
way too far.
Yes, it is actually irrational. I highlighted the same thing. I was just like, Ron, let it go, man. Let it go.
Yeah.
Like, clearly there is enough going on in this room. You're in a weird place. Like, there's a lot happening around you that might suggest that one thing that you thought was true might not be true.
Might not be true.
I think we need to start coming to terms.
Right? Because, like, at this point, Ron has already assumed Scabbers dead for a while. He's, like, kind of over it, and then he just happens to find him at Hagrid's, at which point he bites him and tries to run away again. Ron recaptures him, and now he's, like, sitting in his hands, biting and scratching him. Like, what, like, Ron, just hear them out. Just hear them
yeah,
out.
Yeah. Now is the time. Now is the time. But the other time that we're up for is that everybody in the room needs to start asking questions on behalf of the readers.
Yes.
And I feel like the next couple of chapters are going to do this really well, where it's like, we really need to make sure we close and we fill in all the like the plot holes and like the loops and everything that like are starting to become problematic. Because of course, like up until this point in time, it's like we've heard from people that we trust that Sirius did commit these murders and that there were witnesses.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, what are we supposed to do about everything that so far has been established? Like, were you just lying to us before? So sure enough, I think Harry chimes in and he's like, there were witnesses who saw Pettigrew die, a whole street full of them. And it's like, yes, we need to ask that question.
Right. Time to start covering all of the bases. So let's see. They didn't see what they thought saw, said Black savagely, still watching Scabbers struggling in Ron's hands. So everyone thought Sirius killed Peter. Lupin confirms it, and he says, I believed it myself. And this is like, it's so great here because Lupin's only like 30 minutes into changing his opinion.
Right.
You know, until he saw it tonight because the Marauder's map never lies. Peter's alive. Ron's holding him here. It almost seems like maybe Lupin, well, I guess Lupin could have brought the map, but the shack's not on the map.
Yeah, the shack's not on the map. So it seems like it goes up to the Whomping Willow, and like that's the point where you like to take off of the map. But but you're right. Like it's like Lupin, it would not have been a big deal because the other thing that Lupin is going to do is make the mistake of leaving the map open on his desk. And it's like, Lupin, what are you doing? Like, you're a marauder.
You know how to use it. What are you doing?
Yeah, manage your mischief better.
It's also, they're going to keep bringing up how the Marauder's map never lies. But there's like, it's funny that they even say it in the movie, like Sirius just yelled, the map never lies. Which, just fun fact, one thing in the movie, they never reveal that Sirius, Peter, Lupin, and James are Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs, even though their names appear on the map. So that's like one of those things, like if you read the books, you just sort of know it. But if you're watching the movies, you'd be like, who are the guys who made the map?
I know.
You know,
yeah. Like how much less impactful is the Stag Patronus if you are like, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as good. But then on the note of the map never lies, there's like a thing in the movie which everyone loves to point out, which when Harry's looking at the map, Newt Scamander's on the map.
Oh,
and it's like, this is just an Easter egg. Like he's not really there. This is like a movie thing that it's like, hey, Newt Scamander, he's the guy who wrote the book. Did you see that? Careful listeners. So the fact that they insist that the map never lies though, then like makes it feel like Newt must have been there. Yeah,
I know. It's a little bit like it's a little bit where you just kind of have to be like, all right, well, not everything that happens in the movies necessarily carries over into our canon. Although one of the explanations I desperately want after the existence of Fantastic Beasts at all is just where is Newt during the whole first and second Wizarding
I know.
Wars?
Where is he at all?
Yeah, because it seems like as much as Dumbledore trusts him, unless it was just basically like at the end of all of Fantastic Beasts, Newt is just sort of like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to go home. Me and Tina, we're going to live together.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to have our little life. We're going to eat mustard hot dogs. It's going to be great.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's how life will be from now on and henceforth.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, Newt not likely there at all. Anyway, though, the next thing that we have happening is Harry and Ron, despite, sort of like the fact that Lupin and Sirius are starting to give some evidence, they're just basically like, yeah, these two have lost their minds. Their story makes no sense. How could this be true? Like, and Harry is effectively like coming to the conclusion that like Azkaban, after all, must have just unhinged Black.
Yeah, but he can't figure out like why Lupin would suddenly be playing along. Like, why would Lupin come in here out of nowhere and just start making these claims?
Yes.
And Hermione kind of comes in with like the more off-page references, like, Professor Lupin, this can't be Pettigrew. It just can't be. You know it can't. And then Lupin turns into like full classroom mode. Bring it down to a screeching halt for Sirius, who's just like, dude, hurry up, tell them the story.
Yes.
So yeah, Lupin very calmly says, why can't it be true?
I just imagine him like pulling out like one of those like telescoping like teacher's pointer things.
Yes.
Where he's like, good question, Hermione, of course. Like, and he's like, whack, and like, smacks like the thing behind him. He's like, let's explain. Let's break it down case by case.
Yeah.
And this is where Hermione is going to be like, because people would know if Peter Pettigrew had become an animagus because we covered them in class with Professor McGonagall, which we did see happen earlier in the book.
Yep.
And she basically just goes on to explain that I looked them up while I was doing my homework. The Ministry of Magic keeps tabs on witches and wizards who can become animals, and there's a register showing what animals they become, which is one of those things where it's like, this register might be like one of those where it's like, this is not the most reliable piece of information because it's going to claim that there are only 7 animagus in this past century, one of whom happens to be McGonagall, who, like, by the way, total rule follower.
I know. What a nerd.
I know, seriously. Because we also know of 4 other people who happen to be animaguses who are not registered.
Yeah.
But it would also be kind of classic Hermione to be like, well, you can't possibly do it without being on the register. And it's like, oh, no, you definitely can.
Just because, I know. This is like, I think harkening back to even like Lupin's dad, whose name escapes me, but I think he worked for the Ministry. And part of the reason like Lupin was attacked because his dad was trying to like make a werewolf registry.
Oh, yes.
I think, which was like super unpopular and equally unhelpful because like, you know, whilst it seems like a good idea on paper, be like, hey, look out, these people are werewolves. Like, we should be aware of who they are. Like, people are so prejudiced against werewolves that, like, if you've been bitten, no one would come forward and admit to being a werewolf.
Right.
So it was really ineffective in that regard. And
well,
like,
it sounds like this register is also rather ineffective in this regard.
it does seem like it. It seems like people don't become like they don't want. This seems like part of becoming animagus is like to do it so that you cannot be tracked.
Yes.
And so it's like, but so I'm definitely not going to tell you.
Well, and this was like kind of like one of those things where I was like, I wonder if there's anybody else who is an animagus that we know who is just also unregistered. Because like the thing that always fleets into my mind is that scene in Spinner's End in Half-Blood Prince when Bellatrix and Narcissa arrive at Snape's house and they like hear like a rustling and Bellatrix like kills a fox.
Yes.
And it's sort of like she's like, I thought maybe, you know, and it's like who did you think it was?
I know, because, and it also, that line also suggests like if you're an animagus and you are killed in your animagus form, you would revert back to a human form.
Oh, true.
Right.
Yes.
So, but it sounds like the way she does it, like maybe she's just sort of guessing like at a rustling in the bushes, but you could also interpret it like it is known that a member of the order is a fox.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That could be the case. Then you're sort of like, who did we never learn? And there's not necessarily like a whole lot of evidence that like makes it absolute that your animagus form would match your Patronus form. But the person who came to mind for me was just like Kingsley's Patronus is like a lynx.
Yeah.
Which feels like it's in that same like column as a fox.
It feels like, is it possible Kingsley it has an animagus form as a lynx, and that in the dark, Bellatrix mistook a fox for a lynx and tried to kill it.
Yes.
Because they don't look horribly different.
Right.
Especially like through the bushes in the dark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there's like a point in the like, does Kingsley have an animagus form? Because that'd be amazing.
That would be a cool piece of trivia to discover.
That would be such a cool one. Like
Yeah.
it just never comes up, but
like-
actually he's got a link. He's a lynx, you know?
Yeah, like it's not terrible. Because even the fact that like we get that piece of information in Deathly Hallows where it's like the lynx showed up. It's like, why is it a lynx? Like we haven't really like that animal choice in particular is kind of like, I mean, I guess to be fair, a lot of the Patronuses are kind of like, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like we get that detail for some reason, and we know that there's a fox that Bellatrix suspects for some reason. So I don't know. It feels like there's something to that.
Feels like there could be something to it. It also got me wondering, like, do we know any of the other registered animagus besides McGonagall?
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
Because
yes.
apparently there are 6 others.
Right.
That we just never learn about.
Yeah, I
know?
mean, and the fact that it's such a broad window as the last century suggests that like you could be dealing with people who have like were animagus and have like since died.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is trying to suggest that like there are only 7 living from this past century, you know, or exactly how that works. But you're right. Yeah, it'd be fun to tug on that string and see if we can find anybody else who might be.
Yeah. Oh, I went and looked like on the Wikipedia to see if like maybe they'd appeared in other things that I was just unfamiliar with in some capacity. And sure enough, there was a list of other characters and stuff that have become animagus, largely in the Hogwarts mystery game.
Oh no.
I know, which is like they ruin the Wikipedia searches because I'll come across so many facts and I'm like, oh, what is this? And I'm like, oh, it's from that again.
Oh, right. Yes.
Like,
yeah.
but
Jacob's sibling.
Jacob's sibling is apparently also one, but he could be like one of 3, like between like frog and eagle and something else or something. So it seems like it's like depends on which path the character takes could change what he is.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like Pokemon where like your rival has whatever one is good against you or whatever.
So it's not like once you become an animagus, you can choose between these 3 forms, and it's sort of like, hey, we're going into like a sewer, so be a frog, or like, hey, we need to fly over this thing, so be an eagle. It's like depending on the choices you make, you might get eagle or frog or whatever.
Right. Yeah, depending on how the story played out for you, the player. Yeah. So that makes it seem like a little more wishy-washy. And then like there's just a few of the other characters in there as well. And then I think there was another one that was like from one of the Lego games, none of which seems super canon to me.
I would agree with you. Yeah. I think we've stepped too far out of the bounds for those to count. But I guess to each their own. But otherwise, so then as we move on, there's kind of this like hilarious ish moment where as Hermione is like giving all this information about like the amount of research that she did, Harry is sort of like boggled at the fact that Hermione for this homework assignment had gone just so far above and beyond. It says Harry had barely had time to marvel inwardly at the effort Hermione put into her homework when Lupin started to laugh. Right again, Hermione, but the Ministry never knew that there used to be 3 unregistered animagi running around Hogwarts.
Yeah.
At which point Sirius is starting to get even more impatient. He's just sort of like staring at Scabbers, and I imagine sort of like gritting his teeth in Scabbers' general direction. And he says, I've waited 12 years. I'm not going to wait much longer.
Yeah. Yes, you are, dude. It turns out you are going to wait.
Yes.
Because the stories that we haven't even really started so far.
I know. Yeah, we really haven't even super gotten to the meat of it. I also just want to pause there just because I think you and I always get this wrong, and we always say 13 years. I don't know why we always make this mistake, but yeah, like I think we always, like when we're quoting Sirius from the movie, we're like 13 years of it in Azkaban, and it's 12.
It's just 12.
It's
Yeah, you're
12.
right. We always
Yeah.
get that wrong.
Yep.
Let's see. So we keep moving, and Lupin says he's going to need help from Sirius, but then he stops. And because there had been a loud creak behind him, which we are going to learn was Snape entering the room.
Yes.
But
So
this was like you had like a theory about this particular moment.
I do sort of have a theory about this. Yeah. So it says the bedroom door had opened of its own accord. All 5 of them stared at. Then Lupin strode toward it and looked out into the landing. No one there. And so this is sort of like my like stick with me moment, because there's a piece of me that thinks that Lupin knows in this moment that Snape has just entered the room.
Right.
Because there's going to be like a lot of stuff that Lupin is going to go on to say that I think is almost like he like wants Snape to hear in a capacity that like is coming through the lens of like, you don't know that I know that you're here. So I want you to know that everything I'm about to say, I am speaking authentically about.
Right.
And in that way, I think like Lupin is attempting to like see if he can't make like very passive amends maybe with Snape via this process. So kind of keep that in the back of your head, because the like, you know, Ron will basically respond to the door opening of its own accord, and this would kind of fit with everything we would have known about the Shrieking Shack so far. And Ron says, this place is haunted. And Lupin's like, it's not. Still looking at the door in a puzzled way.
Right.
And that phrasing there on the end is the piece that kind of like led me down to like tug on the string. Like Lupin is like, something just happened.
Right.
Like, and Lupin would know that like he left the invisibility cloak at the bottom of the Whomping Willow. So there's like the possibility that Lupin like could be like, there's a reason that somebody...
Well, Lupin didn't. Harry left it there.
Harry left it there.
Yeah.
You're right. Harry left it there. But so there, I guess whether or not I guess he saw it maybe would be the question, as to whether or not Lupin could know that would be on the table.
But he would know that the map had been left open on his desk, and that maybe Snape was going to bring him his potion.
Yes.
And could have seen it. So there is that. There's also like, you kind of got to think that, like, I don't know, it's surprising that no one else notices it, because like Snape is wearing a cloak that touches the floor, and like when they were like entered the shack, there was a whole line about like how how there was like a trail on the floor from where Sirius had like dragged Ron up the stairs.
Yes.
Like it's so dusty. It's like there's no way Snape is not disturbing the dust on the floor.
It's true.
So yeah, you kind of feel like in the rest of the chapter, like Lupin's like, yeah, don't worry, we're not talking to you over there, dust trail in the corner. We don't know you're here. Whatever, you know.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So keep it in the back of your mind as we kind of trod forward, and we'll see if we can't find other moments where this particular thought does stand out. But then Lupin does clarify the Shrieking Shack was never haunted. The screams and howls the villagers used to hear were made by me.
Ooh, I know, but like it is so lucky for Dumbledore that he hired Lupin the same year that Sirius broke out. Like that's not part of his plan at all. You know, he just hires Lupin to teach Harry this year, and also Sirius breaks out.
Also true.
You know,
also true. Yes. This has worked out reasonably well.
Yes.
But yeah. So then Lupin goes on to explain that this is where it all starts with my becoming a werewolf, and this is like one of those like very like massively important details. Like a lot of things happen because Fenrir Greyback bites young Remus Lupin.
Yeah.
And like Albus being open to a werewolf being at his school means these like other precautions, and those precautions like build like all this other like wild lore around it. So that's kind of like good fodder for like a what if Lupin had never been bitten as a child?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
even that would then change the story a lot. Lupin goes on to say that I was very small when I received my bite. My parents tried everything, but in those days there was no cure. We do get the clarification that the wolfsbane potion that Snape has been making for him for all this time is a very recent discovery, which is another one of those like facets that needs to be folded into the story. Otherwise you're like, why did they plant the Whomping Willow? Why didn't they just give Lupin wolfsbane
The potion then.
while he was at school? And it's
Yeah.
like, because it's recent.
Yeah.
See? So like
like very recent.
very
you know?
recent. So we couldn't do it then.
And even though he says there was no cure, there's still not technically a cure. The wolfsbane potion doesn't like stop you from turning into a wolf. It just like stops you from going crazy when you turn into a wolf.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the next description. It says, I keep my mind when I transform. I am able to curl up in my office a harmless wolf. Which that's another one. If you take it back to that chapter art, like you might think that what we're seeing here is just the depiction of a harmless wolf.
Yeah.
Because neither Sirius nor Lupin, again, we're going to be in these forms for the rest of it. So
Yeah, it also like brings up like the way he phrases this like leaves a lot unanswered about the wolfsbane potion, because he says, as long as I take it in the week preceding the full moon, I keep my mind when I transform. And there was like earlier in the book where like Snape brought him a potion and he drinks it and then he says, you should take another one tomorrow or something like that. Obviously leading up to the full moon, but it's like he says, if I take it the week preceding the full moon, it's like you just have to take it like once at least within the week leading up to it. You have to take it like every day in the weeks leading up to the full moon. You know, it's like it's hard to know.
It's hard to know exactly how this works, and like, you know, not to step outside of the world of Harry Potter for a second. I know like with some, you know, medications and stuff, like there is that like build up time period where like if you start like a new medication, it's like it'll take 2 weeks for it to reach like proper levels,
Yeah.
you know, or whatever. So it could be the case that like, especially being like a fairly new discovery, they're like best to just like hedge on the side of safety. Like, you know, it's not going to hurt you to take
Right.
it every day, like the 7 days leading up to it or the 7 days after or whatever. So like we'll just take it as much as is needed.
Right. But if you're taking it the 7 days leading up to it, like, and this happens once a month, that's like 25% of the time you're drinking this potion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
that's
is
a lot.
a lot. But it also like the way there's so many inconsistencies to how the werewolf transformation takes place.
There are.
Because like he says, I can curl up in my office a harmless wolf and wait for the moon to wane again, which is like, okay, when do you transform then? Because outside, like as this conversation is happening, like it is nighttime and the full moon is out.
It's currently out.
It is currently out
Yes.
in the sky. Like we're going to see in a couple of chapters, like Harry is going to watch Lupin emerge from the castle and run to the Whomping Willow, and it will the book will note that there was a cloud obscuring the moon at that moment.
Yes.
And it's just like, okay, so he was outside during a full moon, but a cloud is enough to stop it.
It almost makes it like a requirement that you must be like actively moon bathing in sight of the full moon.
Yeah.
In order to be transformed, in which case it just sounds like easy enough to avoid.
Right. Like it just seems like being inside in like a windowless environment is enough.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's very strange because even the transformation, like as this entire night unfolds, what we will come to learn is that like in book time tomorrow, Lupin will be packing his bags to leave.
Yeah.
So it's like Lupin will transform tonight when he is fully exposed to the moon, which of course makes sense. But then by tomorrow daytime, he will be back to human form again. So the real question that's kind of going on is sort of like what constitutes like the full moon? Like does it like look like a full circle in the sky? Because like that could be like 3 days worth of time.
Right.
Is it like the moment of the full moon? Because like that's like an instant.
Yeah, like that's just like one very specific point in time where the moon is catching the full reflection of the sun.
Yes. Like if you've ever had the unique opportunity to like witness like a solar eclipse, you're not talking about an experience that lasts hours necessarily, like in terms of like complete coverage.
Yeah.
It's like this is the type of thing where it's like you go, you find your spot, you're in a specific spot in the world, and it's so that you can watch the coverage happen, be there for a moment before it passes. So it's like that's sort of like what I think about like with the full moon. It's like it's only officially a full moon for a very brief moment before the waning happens again.
I know. And then there are times too, like where you can see the full moon in broad daylight.
Also true. Yes, also true.
Like it's just up there.
Right. So maybe there's like a whole day, like maybe 3 days, it's like where it's just better to not risk it.
Right.
But it's also surprising how many experiences they just had with Lupin in full transformation mode.
Right. Because because they said they figured out in their 5th year. Right. And they're there for 10 months of the year. So assuming that they like all turned into animagus during the September of their 5th year, and that would be like a total potential outings of 30, right?
At minimum, I think it's 30.
At minimum.
Because you would have all 5th year.
Or at maximum 30.
Well, depending on how long the outings can last.
That's true. Like, could they go out multiple days in a row?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So if it is like the 3-day thing, then it's like maybe what you're dealing with is like, 30 months times 3 days would be like 90 different like occasions.
Yeah.
Under which to me is almost what feels close to right. Like the way that they talk about it.
It seems like they were out there all the time.
It does seem that
this.
way. Yeah. But no matter what it was also enough to where Lupin needed to make excuses to explain away his absence, and in a big enough way that not only the people in his own common room are realizing it, but also Snape is like starting to theorize on his own as well.
But then his absence is like, even during this year, he's been taking like days at a time off of work.
Yes.
So that also makes it seem like, it would seem like if it happens at night, then couldn't you just still teach during the day?
That's the thing. Yeah, it's like it seems like that would be the case to me. I can't tell if this is just like over safety.
Yeah. Is it just over safety, or is it? I guess it's the case if you transform, you were probably up all night. But then he says, I could keep my mind transform and curl up in my office, a harmless wolf. So it sounds like he would still transform, but still just sleep. But what's stopping you from teaching the next day other than just maybe safety, or maybe it's still very painful and exhausting and you need time to recover, or
I know. I mean, it's probably like one of the like anything else where it's better to err on the side of safety, because in the event that for some reason you do have one of those like daytime full moons and it blasts in through the side of the window when he does transform in a classroom full of kids, it's like that's like open season. Well,
that's bad.
It's it's like the worst case scenario is really bad.
Yeah.
So it's like best to just err on the side of safety. But then anyway, then he continues to go on to explain basically that Dumbledore became headmaster. He was sympathetic to the situation. The Whomping Willow was specifically planted because Lupin was coming to Hogwarts, and the house that they're standing in, the Shrieking Shack, was specifically built for his use. And it does say once a month, I was smuggled out of the castle into this place to transform, and then the tree was, of course, placed over the mouth of the tunnel to stop anybody from coming across him while he was dangerous.
But like that could even still, even if he was once a month smuggled out of the castle, he could have been there for multiple days.
Also true. Also true.
But yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, I do think it's just once a month. It's so hard to know based on like what are the rules of the transformation.
Yes, it's almost as if like everything else suggests that like lycanthropy is like not that big of a deal. Like it seems like it would be like a highly manageable situation if you take the right steps. Because it seems like it really doesn't seem to be like impacting you all that often. And if you have the ability to just go take them somewhere safe during that period of time, like it almost just even seems like the castle would just be like prepared. Like, yeah, this person, has this particular affliction. We have a place to take them while this happens. Like, everybody knows we all pay attention to it. We make the necessary safety steps, and then it's over, and then we continue on with our lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's also just like the cloud cover in this chapter. It just drives me crazy.
I understand.
Because it just seems like if he's in this Shrieking Shack where the windows are boarded up, how is the moonlight hitting him?
Exactly.
I don't get it.
Right. Yes. The water vapor of the sky can protect you, but not the opaque surfaces, the walls of the Shrieking Shack.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Anyway, it sounds like regardless of how we understand it, at least once a month, he was turning into a werewolf in the Shrieking Shack. It was terrible and painful, and he was a full-on monster. So,
precisely.
There we go.
Yep. Then the other thing that happens is that the transformations, when he was younger, were terrible. It was super painful, and he was separated from humans, so he would bite and scratch himself. And this is basically what led to everybody thinking the Shrieking Shack was inhabited by violent spirits, which is a rumor that Dumbledore himself encouraged. Which, that's another one of those where it's like if it's coming from Dumbledore, you can easily see where like people are like, yeah, all right,
he's probably right.
Yeah, I mean, people aren't gonna at least not yet. People don't really seem to doubt Dumbledore. So it's like if such a voice of reason is like, yes, dark spirits, it's like, okay.
Well, if you say so.
Sure enough.
Yeah. And then I think it's funny. He says, even now when the house has been silent for years, the villagers don't dare approach it. It's like they don't dare approach it up close, but it is like now a tourist attraction.
Exactly. Yeah. It's one of the top 3 things you can do in Hogsmeade.
I know.
Right after going to the post office.
Exactly. You got to go check out that post office.
Right. Yeah. There's the sweet shop, the post office, the possibly derelict building.
Yeah, that's basically it. Because literally nothing has happened for over a decade, so it's just an old shack you can look at.
Yes.
From afar.
Yep.
And apparently not get into because, like Ron even says, Fred and George tried to get in.
Exactly.
They don't.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
But so then Lupin does go on to explain that apart from his transformations, he was happier than he ever had been in his life, which is just like one of those things. It's just like, oh, Lupin,
I know,
you poor guy. Because his 3 friends basically couldn't fail to notice that he was disappearing once a month. He was making up all sorts of stories, told him that his mother was ill, that he had to go home and see her. And he was terrified that they would desert him if they found out what he was.
I know. Well, even it's interesting to you feel so bad for Lupin right here because his 3 friends are, of course, Sirius, Peter, and James. And it's like all in one night because of each other, they disappear.
Yes.
It's such a bad night for Lupin.
Yes. I mean, because, James is obviously killed by Voldemort. Peter is the reason for that, which leads Sirius to, murdering him, air quotes, which basically then Peter is on the run or dead, believed to be dead, and Sirius is in Azkaban. So all of a sudden, Lupin goes from having this, the strongest friendship any 4 people have ever had in the existence of forever, and now he's all alone. And an outcast.
Yeah. Just went to bed one night, everything's, not fine because Voldemort's out there.
True.
But went to bed one night thinking everything was okay and woke up and Voldemort had been defeated, but all of my friends are dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Not good.
Not good.
And basically, so that's what he goes on to say. He's like, like you, Hermione, they worked out the truth. I love that line because it's sort of like James and Sirius are always regarded as being the top of their class at everything. So this is just sort of like Hermione reflecting them reflecting Hermione, because they worked it out as well. And of course, they didn't desert him. They completed the difficult task of becoming animagus, and it ultimately led to the best times of his life.
I know, and I love that. And I love there's this song and dance with Harry trying to figure out what kind of animal his dad turns into, and no one will tell him.
I know,
or
yes.
keeps getting interrupted.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Harry's like, My dad too? Yes, indeed, said Lupin.
Yeah.
It took them the best part of 3 years to work out how to do it, which I highlighted and underlined because 3 years, that's a good piece of trivia. Yeah, that's another one of those lines where it's like, your father and Sirius here were the cleverest in school, and it took them quite some time. Peter needed all the help he could get from James and Sirius. Finally, in their 5th year, also a piece of trivia, they managed it, and they each turned into different animals at will. At which point, Hermione asks yet another one of those questions that we, the audience, need to know the answer to. How did that help you?
I know, because and basically, so what she's wondering is like, who cares if you can turn it into an animal? Aren't you still like at risk of being attacked by a werewolf?
Yes.
And Lupin explains that, oh, well, they couldn't keep me as company of humans, so they kept me as company as animals because a werewolf is only dangerous to people. To which I'm like, but you're still people,
I
right?
know. There's a couple of distinctions that I think are going to be hard to like sort here because it almost seems like you in animagus form are able to endure certain damages that don't transfer back to your human self. And this is obviously not true for Lupin, where I think like his werewolf nature is more ingrained into who like his actual like DNA. So like when he scratches and bites himself, like he comes back into human form and he has scratches and you know cuts and bruises and stuff all over him. But in the next couple of chapters, when Lupin and Sirius are facing each other down, it sounds like Sirius gets seriously slashed up and beat up, but then he transforms back into a human, and at no point in time is it like Sirius had a great scratch, you know, over his face from where Lupin had attacked him. Meanwhile, on the flip side, Peter, who cut off his finger as a human, is still missing the finger in rat
As a
form.
rat, yeah.
So it seems like their human maladies can affect their transformation forms in a way that doesn't seem to transfer the other way.
Right. It does seem like that.
So possibly that's another one of those things where it's like a werewolf is only a danger to people because they could go and scratch and claw and bite each other as animals and then still transform back into their healthy human selves.
Yeah, and it seems like when they are animals, they are like fully those animals because like even like part of what Sirius says about the Dementors is that like they didn't affect him as much as a dog because like dogs don't have as many feelings. So it's like, but you're so like it's easy to feel like you're just like a human in the shape of a dog, but it's not. It's more like you're a human who has become a dog that you, the human, are driving.
Yes.
Or something.
Yeah. Something along those lines. And we can come back to that again later because there's another point that I want to make about Peter when the time arrives. So let's see here. Basically then Lupin also goes on to say in kind of like a vague way where he's like, under their influence, I became less dangerous. My body was still wolfish, but my mind seemed to be less so while I was with them.
Love this sentence.
Yes.
Yeah, because so what he's describing sounds very similar to how the Wolfsbane potion works.
Yes.
Like that he can he gets to keep his mind when he takes the potion. And he's kind of saying that like when I was hanging out with my friends, I kind of got to keep my mind as well, which makes it sound like what actually helps you keep your mind is friendship.
Yes.
More than anything, which then makes it sound like what the Wolfsbane potion is actually brewing is like friendship.
He's like, and the person who can do it uniquely, apparently,
ironically,
is Snape.
Is Snape.
So
he can brew friendship, but he can't do it.
He can't do it. Yeah.
Like kind of. Oh, what does he say at the beginning? I could teach you how to like bottle glory and
brew fame.
Yeah. Too bad you can't earn it. That's funny. That'd be so funny if he said something about friendship there.
I know, that would be really fascinating.
Yeah, but it does sound like, even the way he's saying that, it's like, yes, you can brew literal concepts into a potion, which is kind of what Felix Felicis is. It's like it's brewing luck into into like magical form.
I don't hate that as a comparison at all. I think that fits extremely well, and it would be fascinating if it's sort of like you can brew friendship, but it doesn't give you friendship. I think would even be like a reason why it's so attributed to being a solve for becoming a werewolf, because it's like, unlike luck, which you can go and utilize, having the sensation of friendship without the friends themselves might be like a kind of hollow feeling, even if it works in this highly specific application. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, it does. It does.
You know, because it's like you might be like, why doesn't everybody just like brew friendship then, or like why don't they use like wolf? Like why is it like the wolfsbane potion? It's like I think it's probably because like I can't see it being highly valuable because real authentic friendship is probably always going to be better than whatever this is doing.
Yeah.
And then yeah, so it's enough to allow you to keep your wits while in werewolf form, but it's not enough to replace the actual need for friends.
For friends, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, why like this is a useful application for the potion.
Right.
Yeah. But so let's see. Sirius still getting tired of waiting for Lupin to hurry up. Just hurry up, Remus. Still watching Scabbers with a horrible sort of hunger on his face. Which to me, Ron still, don't forget, Ron still holding on very tight to Scabbers through all this, who must be hearing everything just like, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap.
Yeah, they're monologuing.
Oh, no. Yeah, he starts monologuing. Exactly. But so they go on to explain, soon we were leaving the Shrieking Shack, roaming the school grounds and the village by night. Sirius and James transform into such large animals that I will not reveal right now. They were able to keep a werewolf in check.
Yes, exactly. Although that it must be the case that it required both of them to do this, because here very shortly, Sirius in large dog animal form will be taking on Lupin in werewolf form, and it is no help.
It is no help, yeah.
So he can't do it by
he's sort of a
himself.
minor distraction.
Yes,
Yeah.
It pretty much seems like Lupin handily wins that battle.
Handily wins, yeah. I mean, you can see where having a giant deer might help because the antlers would be
quite
quite
protective.
useful.
Yes, yeah. At this point in time, we finally get the flourish, the reveal. Like that is how we came to write the Marauders map and sign it with our nicknames. Sirius is Padfoot, Peter is Wormtail, James was Prongs.
Right. And Harry's like, what sort of animal? And Hermione's like, shut up, Harry.
And I'm like, I literally highlighted it. I was like, oh, Hermione, come on.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just still setting up the reveal for it later when Harry casts the Patronus here. But Hermione cuts in saying, that was really dangerous running around in the dark with a werewolf. What if you'd given the other the slip and bitten somebody? And Lupin's like, yeah, that definitely could have happened. I do not think about it.
Yes,
yep,
there were
correct.
Yeah, the phrase he specifically says, there were near misses, many of them.
Many of them, like
too many guys.
too many. Like one, I can see we're like, hey, you guys want to go out? You guys want to go out?
Yeah, like I could see that like temptation to flirt with danger a little bit, and then being like, oh, that didn't go well.
I know, like, whoo, just narrowly missed that one. But then, like, the fact is, not only does it happen once, maybe even once, you could be like, okay, we'll just be really careful from now on.
Right.
And then it happens again. But this sounds like it happened like a lot. And they just kept being like, nah, we're good.
We're good.
Don't worry about it. But also, like, how on earth did they keep this under wraps if they are like constantly almost biting somebody?
I have no idea.
You know?
Yeah, maybe this is like one of the. It's a snitches get stitches.
Snitches get stitches. Yeah, they're like threatening them.
I don't think they were threatening them.
No.
Mostly it's just because you've got three very fierce looking animals, and it's sort of like
And a rat.
And a rat. Why is nobody speaking up about what's going on?
I know,
Yeah.
like, because they're near Hogsmeade. Like, that's got to be the people they're almost biting.
Yeah, it
like,
has to
and
be, yeah.
it's apparently a lot of people. So, like, how are people not sharing stories down at the Three Broomsticks? Like, you are not going to believe what happened to me last night. I'm just out in the streets, walking around, and suddenly a wolf almost attacked me.
Yes.
And boy, howdy, it almost got me. And then out of just nowhere, this deer tackles the wolf, and I got away. And there was a dog, and I guess there was a rat too, but I thought that might have just been like a dirty sewer rat or something nearby.
that seemed coincidental.
That seemed
more than
coincidental
anything
and not
else.
related to the other things.
Right.
But like how, like it sounds like many villagers have that story.
Yes.
And they're not telling it, which let me tell you, if I was almost savaged by a wolf that got attacked by a deer and a dog and a rat, then I'd be telling everyone I knew.
Yes. It'd be like, hey, have you guys heard my completely amazing story? Because I'm about to tell you relentlessly all the time.
I know. This would be the most interesting thing that happened to most people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet, despite it all happening in a small town to many people, it doesn't get out.
Yeah.
No one's like, boy, there's a werewolf that keeps coming to this town.
I know. Yeah, people would move.
People would move.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They're like, we've got like the most haunted shack in all of the country.
Yes.
Here in our property, there's a werewolf roaming about. Like, it's like, guys, maybe don't live there.
Maybe don't live there.
Oh man. So anyway, yeah, but he just basically just says we were young, thoughtless, carried away with our own cleverness. And then he says I sometimes felt guilty about betraying Dumbledore's trust. Of course, he had admitted me to Hogwarts when no other headmaster would have done so. And this is building up for explaining yet another sort of like big like potential plot hole, which would basically be that Lupin for the entire school year has believed Sirius to be dangerous. Like he is not out there to protect Sirius. And so upon learning all this particular piece of information and the fact that they are animagus and that they're unregistered animagus and that this is something they were doing during school, you're like, Lupin, why did you not be like, hey, Dumbledore, by the by, he can turn into a great big black dog. We should probably keep an eye out for
Probably
those.
keep out for that black dog.
Yeah. So, but sure enough, basically, this is Lupin explaining why he hasn't given that explanation. He says, all this year I've been battling with myself, wondering whether I should tell Dumbledore that Sirius was an animagus, but I didn't do it. Why? Because I was too cowardly. It would have meant admitting that I betrayed his trust while I was at school, admitting that I led others along with me, and Dumbledore's trust has meant everything to me. So basically, this is just, Lupin being like, well, I didn't want the one person who had faith in me to not have faith in me, and that's why I never said anything.
Which, I mean, you can sort of understand when, like, the entire world is constantly against you and, like, someone finally gives you a chance and you kind of, like, shove that chance in their face.
Exactly.
Even though it's like, I think it's like on the flip end, it's like Dumbledore gave him this life so that he could hopefully like make friends and have a regular childhood, which he does. It just like then those friends lead him into like this dangerous situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then he also has the backup explanation of that, like he convinced himself that Sirius was getting into the school using dark arts he learned from Voldemort, which is interesting. It's a good scapegoat thought to tell yourself.
It is.
When you don't want it to be your fault, and this is the believed story. But also worth noting that that Lupin says Voldemort's name, which almost no adults do.
Yes.
In the story, except for Dumbledore.
Except for Dumbledore, yeah. And this is another one of those things that it was like a string I feel like I've been pulling on a little bit lately, which is just simply that I feel like Lupin in a lot of ways embodies a young Dumbledore. Like he does a really good job at so many different occasions of just being like a very calm in the way that he's like owning situations.
Yeah.
He's got these like little quips. He's like smarter than everybody else in the room.
Yeah.
And so I love the way that like both Remus and Dumbledore are reflected in that same capacity. But so anyway, so he says that, and he basically just says that he convinced himself that Sirius was getting to school from using dark arts he had learned from Voldemort, that being an animagus had nothing to do with it. So in a way, Snape's been right about me all along. And finally, this is another one of those things that kind of like shakes Sirius out of his like absolute intensity to just commit murder ASAP. And he's like, Snape, said Black harshly, taking his eyes off Scabbard for the first time in minutes and looking up at Lupin. What's Snape got to do with it?
I know. It's like you don't know the full history of like Snape and the Marauders just yet, and like just like how much they all dislike each other.
Yes.
And so like this, like if you consider this, Sirius has been trying to kill Peter the whole year. He has been breaking into the castle. He is literally feet away from him and has been rushing Lupin to finish the story so he can kill him this whole time. Like he has been of a single track mind for the last like 10 months in a row.
Yes.
And like Lupin just like mentions the name Snape and he's like, wait, hold up.
Yeah.
Come again for big dog.
Yeah.
He's
got real like squirrel energy here. Dog see squirrel energy.
Dog see squirrel energy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Squirrel?
Snape? What? Because I guess he doesn't know that he works at the school, and he's just like, why on earth would you even bring that guy up? What on earth does he have to do with this?
Yes. In Sirius's mind, Snape is left far in the rear view.
Yeah.
But this is another one of those moments, kind of going back to my sentiment from earlier, that Lupin potentially knows that Snape is in the room with them, because again, all of this has been happening and basically like what Lupin was just like maybe Snape's been right about me all along. Like it's almost like he's trying to say to Snape, like, Snape, maybe you had a point.
Right. Like if you imagine Lupin knows he's in the room, what he's trying to tell Snape right now, if he knows he's in the room, is that like, in a way, you've been correct, Severus, because I knew things I wasn't telling you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. And so, so what Snape got to do with it is what Sirius asks. And then Lupin responds with, he's here, Sirius.
Yes.
And that to me is almost like it's a double meaning.
Yeah.
But it's almost like he's here, like he's here.
Yeah,
You
like
know?
what he means to everyone else in the room, and even to Snape, who doesn't think Lupin knows he's there, is that he's here at Hogwarts. But I can almost see Lupin's like eyes like jutting back to the corner as he tells Sirius this, like he's here, Sirius. Like,
Yes.
like literally in the room, bro.
Very, very, very Dumbledore-like in Chamber of Secrets, where
Yeah.
he's like, Dumbledore's like announcing to Hagrid's hut while they're under the invisibility cloak, and he's kind of just like, help will always be given to those at Hogwarts who ask for it, and he's like eyes like glint over to the
Yeah.
corner. It's like it feels like that's what's happening with Lupin in this moment.
It does. Lupin is such like a mini Dumbledore
That's
in
what
so
I'm
many
saying,
ways.
yeah.
He's so great. But so he continues to explain. He's teaching here as well. And he looks up at Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and then he explains to them. And this is, again, he's explaining to them, but it sounds like he's trying to explain it to Snape as well, that he was at school with us. He fought very hard against my appointment here. And he's been telling Dumbledore all year not to trust me. He has his reasons. Sirius played a trick on him, which nearly killed him, a trick that involved me. Like, he's trying to apologize by means of explaining it to everyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And at this point in time, Sirius is not exactly
Not helping.
Yeah,
He didn't get the hint.
He didn't get the hint at all. Yeah, so he's like, it served him right. He's in here sneaking around trying to find out what we're up to, hoping he could get us expelled. And I'm like,
dude, what a time to dig your heels in, man.
I know.
It is like, dude, this is not the moment to suddenly just be like, hold on. Let me stop murdering Peter for a second to like defend my position from 15 years ago.
Yes, exactly. It's like okay, serious. You're playing a trick on Snape that almost got him killed is not it's not properly backed by Snape hoping he could get you guys expelled.
Yeah.
Like that's not like, those things are not on equal playing.
Yeah, it served him right. It's like, did it?
Yeah, serious. It's a bad take.
Don't know if it did.
Yeah. Anyway. So, let's see here. So,
like Remus really trying to like save the situation. We were the same year, and we didn't like each other very much.
Okay, here's another theory alert coming.
Oh my god, yeah.
He especially disliked James. Jealous, I think, of James's talent on the Quidditch field.
Oh, what a misdirect. Oh, let's go ahead. I literally crossed those words out and just said, jealous, I think, of Lily.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how blind are you two?
I mean, this is like that. Like, how thick can you get?
It is.
It's like, man. Okay, so James is hanging out with Lily Evans, who used to be Snape's best friend. It's like, can you guys can you really not see it?
Like, Lily even comes to defend Snape at times. Like,
Right.
that's part of the memory.
Yes.
that we see. It's like, it's not inobvious that Lily and Snape were friends.
Right. No, I know.
Right? Like, it's just not. So it's like, he says, jealous, I think, of James's talent on the Quidditch field. It's like, dude, if you had just been a little bit more clued in and could have finished that sentence with, jealous, I think, of Lily, like, my goodness, how many situations could have been avoided.
I know.
In the moment.
Yep. So yeah, very, very, very just like oblivious, and I mean, this is the second stab that we've seen that is like, because even Dumbledore at the end of year 1 is sort of like, your father did something that Severus could never forgive. He saved his life. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, Dumbledore, that's not it.
That ain't it.
That's not it.
That's not the thing he did.
Yeah, that's not the thing he did. And then Lupin's like, I was there too. I think he was jealous of James's attention from being on the Quidditch field. And it's like also not it.
Snape doesn't really care. Like, did Snape play Quidditch, do you think?
Well, there's more thoughts on that. But
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
That's for a different chapter.
That's for a different
day.
chapter, indeed.
But we'll go off. Don't worry. Anyway, so let's see here. And basically, they continue to explain that basically what had happened was Sirius thought it would be amusing to tell Snape that he had to prod the knot on the tree trunk with a long stick, and he'd be able to get in after Lupin. So then Snape tried it, and he got if he had gotten as far as the Shrieking Shack, he basically would have run into a fully grown werewolf.
Yes.
And James, having heard of this particular plan, was like, no, Sirius, we're not doing that. So at great risk to his own life, to which brings up a very interesting question as well, because it's like, when does this incident happen? Because you have to imagine, like, was it only at risk to James's life because James couldn't turn into an animagus yet, or because James was unwilling to turn into an animagus in front of Snape and like reveal this particular ability. Because I feel like later on Snape is going to say that like he tried to kill him when he was 16.
Yeah, it says, didn't he prove he was capable of murder at the age of 16, which would be their 6th year at Hogwarts, so they would have been animagus. So it's sort of like, why? Like, maybe, like, they're sending Snape down the trap door, but, like, it sounds like by that point, it would be extremely routine for the Marauders to be like, well, it's a wolf night, you know. It's full moon, time for shenanigans. Like, why aren't Peter and Sirius and James just down there with him to begin with? Transformed. Don't know. Maybe it's just in the name of this exact prank or whatever. But the other thing that so this sets up a couple of things. He says, your father, who heard what Sirius had done, went after Snape, pulled him back at great risk to his life. This is going to, so basically saying that like we had an enemy who we could have killed, but James saved him, which is exactly what Harry is going to do in a couple of minutes with Peter. Like, we have an enemy, we could kill him, Harry's going to step in, save him, and then Dumbledore is going to tell Harry that later on in the book that, you know, when one wizard saves another wizard's life, you know, it creates a kind of bond between them. You've sent Lord Voldemort a deputy who is in your pocket. Right. You know, like, I don't think he's going to like that. It's going to pay off at some point. Right. So effectively, kind of the same thing has happened here. James has saved Sirius's life, so now it's sort of like maybe what he really can't forgive is that like now Snape is in debt to James
in a way that he
Like,
yes, you're right. That's
and
a
it's
good
like
point.
It makes you wonder, like, is this part of why he tries to go save Harry later on when he hears the prophecy because of this moment?
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Like,
right?
it's almost like it's like a magical force,
right?
Like kind of like puppeteering him,
yeah,
towards that way. Because I mean, that's effectively, you never really know if it's like Voldemort's own magic in the silver hand that like, because when that comes up later with Peter in Malfoy Manor, it's his own silver hand that turns against him and you know, kills him because he shows Harry like a moment of mercy, and it's kind of like, is that's that moment paying off,
right?
You know, that's like, you know, but what is driving that particular thing?
What is the mercy Snape eventually shows James?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So let's see here. Snape basically was forbidden to tell anybody from that time that he knew what he was, and then Harry's finally like, so that's why Snape doesn't like you, because he thought you were in on the joke. And like even this feels like one of those lines. Because Harry has come to the conclusion that I think Lupin hopes Snape will come to as well. Like, this is Lupin attempting to be like, Snape, I didn't know what they were doing.
Right, like, I wasn't in on it.
I wasn't in on it. I wouldn't have agreed with it. James didn't agree with it. We all thought Sirius was an idiot for doing it in the first place. Like, you know.
Right, like, I can't imagine how mad Lupin would have been if he woke up the next day and was like, I killed somebody.
Exactly. Yeah. Or turned them into a werewolf.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, I mean, there's no world where Lupin comes out of that and he's like, Sirius, good one, my man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he'd be like I don't think Lupin would be friends with Sirius anymore.
Yeah,
forever.
I don't think so.
You know, because it would have been terrible. It would have been a terrible thing to do. So anyway, at this point in time, we finally get that reveal where Snape says, "That's right," and he pulls off the invisibility cloak from the corner and he's pointing his wand directly at Lupin.
Yeah, it's interesting that that Snape continues to like hold this against him when he's clearly just heard Lupin explain everything.
It's really strange. Yeah. It's really strange.
Yeah.
I mean, and the next chapter is not going to be a fantastic one for Snape.
Snape's going to have, he is like, I mean, to be fair to Snape, he is clearly like suffering from a lot of like trauma.
Yes.
From like having to deal with all these people suddenly and like having like, you know, he thinks Remus was in on a plot to kill him when he was 16, and literally all year he's been forced to like make him this highly difficult potion.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. And I mean, you know, nobody's going to be at their best if subjected to spending time around the people who who tormented them during their high school years.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not a treat for anybody.
Right.
The problem is that also we don't have wands that we're pointing at each other.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's like there's just so much more like at your disposal in these particular situations that raises the stakes rather quickly.
Yes, it does.
And pretty intensely. So anyway, that does round us off for Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. But of course, next week we're going to have even more action still inside of the Shrieking Shack. But before we close out for the day, Jay, do you have a review for us?
Well, I sure do, Ben. This review reads, and gosh, I might have to go look up who left it. My apologies. But it reads, "Hey, brother, I've been a fan since the first video I ever watched from you guys in 2019. This podcast is the best podcast I found in a really long time, and I always wake up extra early on Sundays just to listen to the latest episode. My question is this. In Goblet, what would have happened in the graveyard if Fawkes hadn't given his feathers for Harry and Voldemort's wands? Could Harry escape? If he did, what would happen in the Battle of the Seven Potters without the Golden Fire? I would love to hear your thoughts on this." So basically, how does it go? How does the graveyard go sans twin cores?
How does the graveyard go sans twin cores? Okay, so I think there's a few important details to outline that I think are kind of just interesting as it pertains to Fawkes' feathers. I think. Well, I mean, obviously the feathers had to be provided to Ollivander first.
Yeah.
And there were only ever two.
Right.
Which like it almost feels like there's some fate woven into those two feathers.
It does.
Like Fawkes produced them because of a premonition or a vision.
It feels like Trelawney's initial prophecy is connected to Fawkes in some way.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, never thought about it like that.
That
but
would
they
be
seem connected, don't they?
They do seem very connected.
Because the feathers predate Trelawney's prediction.
Yes, by quite a long period of time, because, I mean, you figure if Tom Riddle was born in 1926, then he should be enrolling at Hogwarts in 1937.
Yeah.
Assuming there's no weird birth date rounding errors in there. It doesn't matter. It's more than 50 years before the second one would ever be collected. And then, of course, it's collected by the other subject of the prophecy, which is like, all of those details feel like they are so heavily stitched together that it's hard to imagine a world where they ever wouldn't be. But for the purposes of answering the question, let's see. Inside of that situation, you have a couple of different things that could still be invoked that could still protect Harry, I think.
So let's see. Yeah, basically, like Voldemort. Basically, we're just fast forwarded to the forest.
You're fast forwarding,
right?
Yes,
to the scene.
Because in the moment in the graveyard, Harry's hiding behind the gravestone, and he was like, he wasn't going to die like this, and he basically stands up and he's like, I've got nothing. I mean, Harry is outgunned, outmatched. Like, there are more of them than there are him.
Right. It's sort of the same thing. He means to die.
Yes, and that's exactly what I would say.
He means to go down fighting.
Right. Yes. He's just like, may as well try, because it's like, I'm either going to be huddled behind this, they're all just going to swarm me and do it, or I can attempt anything and see what happens. So he would mean to die. You would still have Lily's protecting Harry. So
Voldemort is now the love crux.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So that's the big situation. So Harry would probably go into some version of limbo.
Right. So I think that's pretty much what. So basically what happens is probably Voldemort attacks Harry. Harry probably still does Expelliarmus because that's what he does anyway.
That's what he does anyway.
But normally Expelliarmus is able to create like the golden bead situation because of the twin cores.
Right.
Yes, so those two spells, typically they would not meet in midair and have any sort of like battle. Typically Avada Kedavra would just shoot straight through it and
win.
And just win immediately. So that's probably what happens.
Yes.
Harry does Expelliarmus. Voldemort does Avada Kedavra. It just blasts straight through him.
You know what's amazing?
What?
Is that he would end up in King's Cross, probably, because that's where Harry would go, because we know that he does. And even though he wouldn't have Priori Incantatem to bring his parents back, I bet it's them who would come and visit him.
I bet you're right.
So it's like, because Dumbledore's not dead yet.
Dumbledore's not dead.
To come visit him.
Yeah.
So it would have to be the case that that James and Lily could return to Harry and speak to him. and like basically give him some amount of information about what they think has happened.
Right, like what's happening. Voldemort, like, so let's see, would Voldemort also...
Voldemort's soul would also be there, and it would also be maimed.
It would also be maimed. Yes.
Because it's, I mean...
Because they both fall down. So they're like both in limbo.
They would both be in limbo, yep. So...
so the Horcrux inside of Harry would be destroyed.
True.
Like right out of the gate here.
That's handy.
That's handy.
Yep.
I imagine his parents talk to him. Lily explains the sacrifice. She says Voldemort took your blood into himself.
Yep.
So, like, that's why you're here. You can choose to go back. They probably say something along the lines of, like, summon that cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see... Oh, man. It's so sad to even think about, but I could imagine Harry, like, asking, like, can I come with you?
Oh, and they'd probably say yes.
I bet they would say yes.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you would be like, yes, you can come with us, but like
you don't have to.
You don't have to, and like
they probably tell him. Do the Potters must know about the prophecy, right?
I think that when Dumbledore tells Harry about it, he's like, "There's only 2 living people alive who know it."
Well, but of course, Lily and James are dead.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Which means that they could have known.
They could have known about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feels like they must, because otherwise, why would Dumbledore like insist they be hidden?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think that they must.
Okay. Would Lily tell him anything about Snape?
Hard to know.
Hard to know
if that would be a notably important detail. They might be like, by the way, it was Peter who betrayed us, and he's like, I know, I figured that one out on my own.
Yeah. Figured that out.
Yeah.
He's here. Yeah. Okay, so obviously Harry will come back and still escape the graveyard, because otherwise the story's over. Or he comes back and they just immediately kill him again.
Yeah.
Which is no good.
But there's lots of interesting stuff that could then... The forest again doesn't have to happen later.
The forest again doesn't happen. Well, because now it's not a matter, like, Harry doesn't have to get rid of the Horcrux. Dumbledore doesn't have to worry about getting rid of the Horcrux inside of Harry.
Right.
Yet.
Yes. Which means Harry doesn't have to die again.
It also means, like, the problem of the twin cores slows Voldemort down for a long time.
It does.
Because he will spend the whole next year trying to get the prophecy, looking for a way around it. And then when that's gone to him, he will try and get the Elder Wand, thinking that, like, well, doesn't matter. I'll just get a wand that's so powerful, it won't matter.
It won't matter.
Or no, he doesn't even do that first. First, he tries to get Lucius's wand, thinking as long as the cores don't match, it won't matter.
Okay, so that was the next question.
So yeah, then there's no golden fire.
There's no golden fire. Do you think it changes Snape's behavior in the Battle of the Seven Potters at all if he knows that Harry doesn't have to die? Like, is there a world where, like, Snape would, like, block, like Snape shoots the golden flames, or
well, the golden flames
is
a product of the twin cores.
It is a product of the twin cores. So, like, maybe it's not the golden flames, but, like, we need Harry to be protected somehow, otherwise Voldemort just kills him on a broomstick.
Well, I still think anytime he attacked him, he would have this problem.
He would have this problem. Yeah, I mean, he's binding Harry to life.
Right. He'd have to start looking for a way to overcome
Lily's sacrifice,
which is what he was already doing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's so interesting.
He might realize, like, checkmate way sooner.
Right.
That this might be the reason he has other people try and kill Harry. Then that could be a thing.
I wonder
if
there's
I can't do it. It must be someone else.
Oh, and would he allow that?
Oh,
or the
now
other,
we have a real problem.
The other question could be a scenario where Voldemort himself realizes that he must die in order to win, but he would also have. He would think he would have the Horcruxes to balance him, but he would have to destroy his mortal body and go back to that, like, astral mist in order to, like, come back once again using another wizard's blood by using the same process. Because then he could destroy the protection inside of his own body.
Oh.
Like,
that would be interesting.
Lily's sacrifice is in his blood.
Yeah.
But he can kill himself-ish I mean, not really, but like he can destroy
His blood.
his blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could destroy the blood.
Rebuild a new body.
Would he be willing to do so?
Hard to say. Hard to say because, I mean, that's the thing where it's like Dumbledore says that like Harry's sacrifice, like he's like, I meant to die. And Dumbledore's like, and I think that will have made all the difference.
Right.
And it's like, if Voldemort knows he has a Horcrux continuing to tether him to life, he can't go and have, I don't know who would ever come and consult with Voldemort in Limbo, but, you know, there's nobody that could be like, he could be like, I meant to die, except for my Horcruxes, which keep me alive.
Well, but he wouldn't need to go to Limbo to come back.
True.
You know, because that's what happens the first time when he attacks Harry as a baby. He just turns into the, like, you know, astral mist shadow thing.
That's a good point. That's
Yeah.
a good point. Okay.
So he needs a way. You're right. He would need a way to obliterate his body again.
Again.
Yeah. At which point he has to wait. He has to come back again.
Again.
Yeah.
Yep.
But would he be willing to do that? Like, maybe? Or the other obvious way is just like let someone else kill Harry.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, they both feel like rocking a hard place barriers that I can't see him being negotiable on, because one is let somebody else kill Harry, which goes against the prophecy and his own pride, and the other is destroy himself temporarily, not knowing if there could be any other ramifications of having done that twice.
Right.
But
Or like letting one of the Death Eaters kill him might. You can see that even going to one of the Death Eaters' head. You know, like, oh, I conquered Voldemort. You know, why would you listen to him when I killed him?
true.
You know, like
Yeah.
there's room for like a power vacuum sort of situation.
There is. There
Yeah.
is. Yep. So then it's a question as to whether or not whoever he chooses would choose to.
Can he trust them?
Can he trust them?
Probably not.
And he doesn't trust anybody.
Yeah,
Because he doesn't.
because he can't.
Because he can't.
Because he can't
Yeah.
trust anyone. That's his whole problem.
That's his whole problem. That's why
Yeah,
he
if he
ruled-
could trust people, he wouldn't be Voldemort.
He wouldn't be Voldemort.
Exactly.
Oh
So
my gosh.
he's a real rock and a hard place situation. Yeah, I don't know. That is a. What would he do? What would he do?
Those are the scenarios, I think.
Those are
so.
the scenarios. I think
Yeah.
that's what we're left with. Yeah.
Okay. Well, give us your feedback. Let's leave
Yeah.
it there. Yeah. What do you guys think? Do you have any thoughts? Is that enough fodder for a what if scenario? What if the twin cores didn't exist? Because
Yes.
it is so fun to imagine James and Lily coming to Harry in Limbo.
Yeah.
I mean, how emotional would it be?
Oh my gosh,
Dude.
that would be crazy.
Yeah. Like, I mean, for Harry to get to like see his parents in like semi-solid, real, non-pressure form. He can ask them
Right.
questions. He can talk to them. He can be there as long as he chooses.
Right.
You know, like, I mean, you know, that's so impactful. And it's fascinating because it's like normally this is shy of the Mirror of Erised. Like, this is the next time Harry gets to see his parents again. And it's like with this situation, he would probably do the same thing again, just in a completely different environment.
Yeah.
Which is fun. So anyway, yes, be sure to leave us all of your thoughts on that one and how it might go.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think, that rounds off today's episode.
That is going to do it. But thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Through the Griffin Door. Make sure you tune in next week as we travel through chapter 19, The Servant of Lord Voldemort, here on Through the Griffin Door.
Today's episode was edited by Ethan Edghill. Vaishon Brandon does our art. Catherine Stein is our production manager, and the show is hosted by me and Jonathan Carlin.